My boyfriend texted, I gave your concert tickets to my coworker. You'd hate her taste in music anyway. The tickets were for his favorite band, the same band he had talked about since the first month we started dating. The band whose old posters were still rolled up in the back of his closet because he said they were too sentimental to throw away. The band he played on rainy Sunday mornings while making coffee, pretending certain songs did not still hit him in the chest. I stared at that text at my desk until the words stopped looking like words. My name is Clara Wren. I was 28 years old, and by then I had been with Mason Hale for 3 years. 3 years of remembering things he forgot he had said. 3 years of listening closely when he mentioned a restaurant, a hotel, a song, a jacket in a store window, and quietly filing it away because loving someone, to me, had always looked like paying attention. I did not think that made me foolish. Mason had loved that indie rock band since college. He had their vinyl records stacked beside his old turntable and a faded tour shirt he only wore when he was in a good mood. When they announced a reunion show in our city, he nearly dropped his phone. Small venue, he said, eyes bright like a kid. They never do places this small anymore. The venue held about 800 people, the kind of place where tickets disappear before you finish typing your password. So when they went on sale, I planned everything. The tickets dropped at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. I took the day off work and told my manager I had a personal appointment. Technically, I did. I had an appointment with Ticketmaster and Emotional Survival. I logged in at 9:30. My coffee went cold beside me while I watched that little loading wheel like it had my future trapped behind it. I got kicked out twice, rejoined the queue 3 times, and watched the estimated wait jump from 45 minutes to 2 hours to more than an hour, which felt like the website laughing directly into my face. 6 hours. I barely ate. I kept one hand near the mouse like the tickets might vanish if I blinked too slowly. And somehow I got them. 2 tickets. $340 after fees. Because apparently every button you click now comes with a convenience charge for being inconvenienced. But I was happy. Ridiculously happy. Then I booked the hotel. Not just any hotel either. The little boutique one downtown Mason had pointed at months earlier when we walked past it after dinner. One day, he had said, squeezing my hand, we should stay there and pretend we're rich. So I booked 2 nights. Then I made a reservation at the Italian restaurant he had been hinting about forever. The one with low lighting, handmade pasta, and a wait list that made you feel like you were applying for citizenship. By the time I finished, I was almost $1,200 deep into a weekend I could barely afford. But I kept picturing his face. That was the problem with me. I always pictured the face before I pictured the cost. I imagined him opening the surprise early for his birthday. I imagined him laughing, pulling me into a hug, saying, "You remembered?" I imagined us walking downtown after the show, his hand warm around mine, both of us feeling like we were still choosing each other. Last week, I told him. I showed him the tickets first, then the hotel confirmation, then the dinner reservation. For a second, he looked stunned, then happy. Then something else passed over his face so quickly I almost missed it. Calculation. Wow, he said. Clara, this is huge. I know, I smiled. You've wanted to see them forever. He kissed me, but it landed strangely, like his mind had already stepped out of the room. Then he said, "Can I handle the logistics?" The logistics? Yeah, just the confirmations and stuff. You already did so much. Let me organize the weekend. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Maybe he wanted to feel involved. Maybe he felt bad I had planned all of it alone. So I sent him everything. Ticket confirmation, hotel booking, restaurant reservation. All of it. I remember sitting there afterward feeling proud of myself. That almost makes me laugh now, because the next afternoon, while I was at work, my phone lit up with Mason's name. Hey, babe. So I gave the concert tickets to Erin from work. She's a huge fan too, and she's been having a rough time with her divorce. You'd hate her taste in music anyway, lol. We can do something else for my birthday. I read it once, then again, then again. I kept waiting for my brain to find the joke. It never did. My fingers felt cold when I typed back. You gave away both tickets? A few seconds later, bubbles appeared. Yeah, she needed a night out. I'm going with her, obviously. Someone has to make sure she doesn't spiral. The office around me kept moving. Phones rang. Someone laughed near the printer. A coffee machine hissed in the break room. Meanwhile, I sat completely still, staring at the screen like it had opened a crack in the floor beneath me. You're going with her? His reply came fast. Don't make it weird. She's just a friend. You know I've wanted to see them forever. That sentence did something to me. You know I've wanted to see them forever. Yes, I did know. That was why I sat in a ticket queue for 6 hours. That was why I spent money I should have saved. That was why I planned the hotel, the dinner, the whole weekend. Because I knew. And somehow, in Mason's mind, my knowing had made me useful, not important. I locked my phone, walked to the bathroom, and splashed water on my face. In the mirror, I looked too calm, the way people look right after something inside them finally stops trying. I asked myself if I was overreacting. Then I pictured Mason at that concert beside Aaron, using the tickets I bought, singing along to the songs I had listened to, because I loved him enough to care. And I knew I was not. I went back to my desk. First, I called the hotel and canceled. They charged me one night anyway. Almost $300 gone. Then I called the restaurant and canceled that too. The hostess sounded offended, like I had personally betrayed the pasta. Then I opened Facebook. I stared at my relationship status for a long time. In a relationship with Mason Hale. 3 years sitting inside one little line. I changed it to single. 20 minutes later, my phone started vibrating like it was trying to crawl off the desk. Mason, his sister, 2 of his friends. Mason again. I did not answer. Then came the voicemail. His voice was sharp, angry, almost breathless. What is wrong with you? Are you seriously breaking up with me over concert tickets? You're being immature. Call me back. I listened once. Then I sent one text. Hope you and Aaron have fun at the show. Then I muted his number. And for the first time in 3 years, the silence did not scare me. I expected Mason to calm down after a day. I expected him to think about what he had done, realize how absurd it sounded, and maybe call with an actual apology. Instead, he showed up at my apartment that night looking furious. I heard the front door open while I was sitting on the couch. For a second, I forgot he still had a key, and my stomach tightened because I already knew what kind of conversation this was going to be. The kind where someone hurts you, then gets angry that you are hurt. I stood as he walked into the living room. His jaw was tight. His arms were crossed. The vein near his temple was visible. Seriously, he said, you canceled everything? No hello, no apology, no explanation, just anger. I looked at him for a moment before answering. Why would I keep reservations for a trip you're taking with someone else? His eyes narrowed. I'm not taking a trip with someone else. You were literally going to a concert with another woman using tickets I bought. Aaron is a friend. He said it like that should have closed the case. A friend, I repeated. A friend you chose over your girlfriend. His expression darkened. There you go again. There I go again doing what? Making everything weird. That word. Weird. The word people use when they do not have a defense. The word people use when they want your reaction to become the problem instead of their behavior. I folded my arms. No, Mason, explain it to me. Explain exactly how this was supposed to work. He threw his hands up. Fine. Aaron and I go to the concert. Then we meet up afterward. I blinked. Meet up afterward? Yeah. You expected me to spend Friday night alone while you went to the concert I planned for you with another woman, and then I was supposed to meet you afterward for dinner? His face immediately tightened. That's not what I said. It is exactly what you said. You always twist things. 3 years together, and somehow every disagreement eventually arrived at the same destination. He did something hurtful. I reacted. Then suddenly we were discussing my reaction instead of his choice. This time, though, I could finally see the pattern instead of standing inside it. You never asked me, I said quietly. His expression shifted just enough to tell me he knew I was right. You didn't ask if I was okay with it, because I knew you'd say no. The words landed hard. Even he seemed to realize what he had admitted. I nodded slowly. Exactly. What? You knew I'd say no. Because you're jealous. No, Mason. You knew I'd say no because you knew it was disrespectful. He rolled his eyes so hard it made something hot rise in my chest. Not the gesture itself, but the casualness of it. The way he dismissed pain he had caused like it was background noise. God, Clara, she's getting divorced. And? She's struggling. And? She needed a friend. I stepped closer, and somehow the solution was taking something your girlfriend spent 6 hours getting and handing it to another woman. His silence lasted just a little too long. Then he tried another angle. You don't even like that band. I gave a short, disbelieving laugh. Do you know how many songs by that band I have listened to? I frowned. What? I know every album. I know your favorite song. I know which live performance you said was better than the studio version. I know which album came out during your freshman year. His eyes shifted away. For 3 years, I had listened. Really listened. Not because I loved the band, but because I loved him. And suddenly I realized something painful. He had never noticed. Not enough to understand why that excuse made things worse. He sighed dramatically. the way people do when they think they are dealing with an unreasonable child. I think you're blowing this way out of proportion. That sentence killed whatever hope I had left. He still thought the problem was the tickets. He still thought this was about a concert. Not trust, not respect, not being treated like an equal partner. Just tickets. I walked toward the kitchen counter. Mason. What? I need your key. His head snapped up. What? The key. You're serious? Completely. For the first time since he arrived, uncertainty appeared on his face. Real uncertainty. I think that was the moment he realized this was not a fight. It was an ending. You can't be serious. I am. Over one mistake? No. His eyebrows pulled together. Then what? I met his eyes. Because this wasn't one mistake. This was 6 hours in a ticket queue. This was a hotel reservation. This was a dinner reservation. This was every time I paid attention to what mattered to you. This was me realizing you never once stopped to think about what mattered to me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he reached into his pocket. The key landed on the counter with a metallic clink that sounded louder than it should have. Fine, he said coldly. Fine, he pointed toward me. You'll regret this. A month earlier, that might have shattered me. That night, it only made me understand him better. No, I said. His expression hardened. You really think you're going to find someone better? I smiled sadly. That's not the point. Then what's the point? The point is, I'd rather be alone than feel alone while I'm with someone. For once, he had no answer. He grabbed his jacket and turned toward the door. For half a second, he paused, and some foolish part of me wondered if he was finally going to apologize. Instead, he said, "You're making a mistake." Then he left. The door slammed behind him, and the apartment became still. I stood there staring at the closed door, waiting for the breakdown. 3 years should have deserved tears, but all I felt was exhaustion. The kind that comes after carrying something heavy for so long that putting it down feels less like grief and more like shock. My phone buzzed again and again. Mason's sister, one of his friends, another friend. Messages arrived faster than I could read them. I ignored every single one. A few minutes later, a text came from a mutual friend. Clara, I think there's something you should know about Mason and Aaron. I reread the message 3 times. My stomach dropped. Though I still tried to convince myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. People do not spend 3 years with someone and immediately accept that the person they loved might not be who they thought. At least I couldn't. So I called my friend. She answered on the second ring. Hey! The way she said it told me everything. That careful voice people use when they already know the conversation is going to hurt. What do I need to know? I asked. She hesitated. I wasn't sure if I should tell you. Tell me anyway. She exhaled. People at Mason's office have been talking for months. The room suddenly felt colder. What kind of talking? The kind where everyone notices something before the people involved admit it. I closed my eyes. Mason and Aaron? Yeah. I sank onto the couch. What exactly are they saying? That they spend a lot of time together. I waited, because that alone was not enough. Coworkers spend time together. Friends spend time together. Adults have friendships. I was not interested in becoming someone who thought every man and woman secretly wanted each other. But then she continued. They eat lunch together almost every day. They leave work together a lot. And apparently there have been rumors since last year. Last year. The words landed harder than I expected. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because nobody knew if it was true. That answer made sense. Rumors are easy. Facts are harder. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I sat alone with the kind of quiet that makes old memories rearrange themselves. Once someone gives you a new piece of information, your brain starts dragging every forgotten detail into the light. I remembered Aaron's name appearing more and more often. I remembered Mason laughing at texts while sitting beside me on the couch. I remembered him mentioning her during dinner, during car rides, during weekends. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now I wondered how many times I should have. The next morning, I woke up to 12 new messages. Most were from Mason's sister. The longest one could have been submitted as a college essay. According to her, I was throwing away a wonderful relationship over a misunderstanding. Mason never intended to hurt me. I needed to stop being insecure about female friends. I read the entire thing once, then deleted it. I was tired of everyone explaining my own relationship to me. Tired of being told what I should feel. Tired of hearing that respect was insecurity if it happened to inconvenience someone else. Around noon, Mason's mother called. For a second, I considered ignoring it, but I had genuinely liked her, or at least I used to. Hello? Her voice sounded disappointed before she even spoke. Clara, I already knew where this was going. I heard what happened. Of course she had. Families become emergency news networks during breakups. I'm sorry you heard about it this way. A pause. Then she said, Mason is devastated. I stared out my apartment window. Devastated was not the word I would have used for a man who spent most of our last conversation defending his decision. He should have thought about that before giving away our weekend. She sighed. You're really ending 3 years over this? Over this. As if this were a misplaced jacket or a forgotten errand, not a deliberate choice. I'm ending it because of what the choice represents, I said. For a moment, I thought maybe she understood. Then she said, relationships require forgiveness. They also require respect. That ended the conversation more than either of us admitted. She hung up politely, but the disappointment stayed in the room with me long after the call ended. That evening, Mason texted me from a number I had not blocked yet. You've turned everyone against me. I stared at the screen and almost smiled from sheer disbelief. I had not posted anything. I had not contacted his family. I had not messaged his friends. I had simply left. The truth was doing all the work by itself. I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, another message came. The coworker already made plans around those tickets. Then, you're ruining her weekend too. Finally, I replied. I don't know, Aaron. His answer came almost immediately. That's cold. I looked around my apartment, the apartment where I had spent 3 years making room for him. 3 years adjusting my schedule, my habits, my plans. 3 years of showing up. And somehow I was the cold one. I set my phone down. The concert was that Friday, and apparently Mason and Aaron were still going. Not only were they still going, they were excited about it. A mutual friend mentioned seeing countdown posts, inside jokes, comments back and forth. The kind of public flirting people think is subtle because they are not looking at it through the eyes of someone they hurt. That twisted something in me. Not jealousy exactly. Disappointment. A small part of me had still hoped he would realize what he had lost before it was too late. Instead, he seemed more concerned about making it to the concert. Friday arrived faster than expected. The day felt strange. Like waiting for a storm you have already decided not to run from. I spent most of the evening at my friend Lauren's apartment. We ordered takeout, watched terrible reality television, and pretended not to notice how often I checked my phone. Around 10:30, Lauren's phone buzzed. Then mine. Then hers again. She looked at the screen, then at me. Well, she said carefully, that doesn't look good. I already knew. Show me. She hesitated, then turned the phone around. And there they were, Mason and Aaron, standing outside the concert venue, smiling and laughing, looking a lot less like coworkers than either of them had claimed. My stomach dropped, but what caught my attention was not the first photo or the second. It was the third. Aaron was leaning against him, and Mason was not moving away. His arm was around her waist. The comments underneath were already exploding. People asking questions. People tagging mutual friends. People wondering what happened to me. Then I saw Mason's reply to one of them. We broke up a while ago, just never updated anything. A while ago, not last week. Not after the tickets. Not after the argument. A while ago. The lie was small, but it revealed something much bigger. People only rewrite timelines when they are trying to hide where a story actually started. And suddenly, I was not wondering whether Mason had chosen Aaron over me. I was wondering how long ago he had made that choice. A week earlier, seeing those photos probably would have destroyed me. I would have stayed awake until sunrise, replaying every memory from our relationship and wondering where I had gone wrong. But that night, something sharper than heartbreak settled inside me. Clarity. Once I saw those photos, I stopped arguing with reality. For days, part of me had been searching for an explanation that would make Mason look better. Maybe he was thoughtless. Maybe he was selfish. Maybe he was immature. But the photos made one thing impossible to ignore. I knew exactly how it looked, and he posted them anyway. The next morning, I woke up to 7 messages. 3 from mutual friends, 2 from numbers I did not recognize, 1 from Mason's sister, 1 from Lauren. The only message I opened immediately was Lauren's. Do not look at social media before coffee. Naturally, I looked at social media before coffee. It was worse. Apparently, the photos from the concert had spread faster overnight. Not viral in the internet famous sense, just viral enough that everyone in our social circle had seen them. There were pictures inside the venue, pictures at the bar afterward, pictures walking downtown. One photo showed Aaron leaning against Mason while he smiled down at her. Another showed them sharing appetizers at a restaurant after the show. Every time someone asked where I was, the answers got more interesting. Some comments were deleted, some weren't. One person asked directly if they were dating. Aaron replied with a laughing emoji. Mason replied with nothing, which somehow looked even worse. When people are innocent, they usually deny things. When they stay silent, everyone fills in the blanks themselves. By noon, another mutual friend called me. His first sentence was, "This is turning into a disaster." What happened now? The problem isn't the concert. The concert seems like a pretty big problem. It was, but now it's becoming a workplace problem. Apparently, Erin was not just a coworker. She reported directly to Mason on several projects. Not every project, but enough. Enough that the pictures were making people uncomfortable. Enough that questions were starting to appear, the kind nobody wants attached to their department. Questions about favoritism. Questions about boundaries. Questions about whether their relationship had started long before anyone admitted it. I listened quietly, thanked him, and ended the call. Despite everything, I was not interested in revenge. I was not calling HR. I was not posting screenshots. I was not exposing anyone. The truth seemed perfectly capable of moving without my help. 2 days later, Mason finally called. Not texted, called. I stared at the screen for several rings before answering. Hello? For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he sighed. Things are getting complicated. Complicated. The favorite word of people cleaning up messes they created themselves. What do you want, Mason? His voice sounded different. Not remorseful, just tired. Can we talk? We are talking. You know what I mean. I did. He wanted a real conversation, the kind where he explained everything, controlled the narrative, and convinced himself he still had access to me. No, you're really not going to hear me out? I walked to the kitchen and poured a glass of water. No. Clara. No. Frustration slipped into his voice. You don't know the whole story. I looked out the window as evening settled over the buildings. Did you know people would assume you were together when you posted those pictures? He did not answer immediately. Mason, it's not that simple. That's not what I asked. A pause. Maybe, not no, maybe. So you knew. People were going to assume whatever they wanted. No, people assumed exactly what you wanted them to assume. His breathing changed. Then he said, I didn't think you'd react like this. After everything, he still thought my reaction was the surprising part. Not giving away the tickets, not taking another woman, not posting romantic-looking photos, not rewriting the timeline of our breakup. My reaction. Goodbye, Mason. Wait! Panic entered his voice, real panic this time. We had 3 years together. The sentence hit differently than he intended, because he was right. We did have 3 years. 3 years that should have taught him who I was. 3 years that should have taught him where my limits were. 3 years that should have taught him I was not someone who accepted being treated as an option. And yet here we were. You should have remembered that before the concert. Then I hung up. The next week was strangely quiet for me, but not for Mason. The rumors kept growing. People kept talking. Eventually, the story reached someone nobody wanted involved. Aaron's almost ex-husband. I did not know him, never met him, did not want to meet him. But according to mutual friends, he saw the concert photos, then older posts, then started asking questions. A lot of questions. Questions about dates. Questions about messages. Questions about when certain friendships became more than friendships. Questions lawyers tend to find interesting. Meanwhile, things at work continued getting worse. Nobody got fired, at least not immediately, but meetings started happening. Private conversations. Closed-door discussions. The kind that make people nervous every time their email notification sounds. Through all of it, I stayed out of the situation. The relationship was over. The story belonged to them now. Or at least that was what I thought. Until Saturday afternoon, I was sitting on my couch reading when my building intercom started buzzing. Once, twice, 3 times, then 5 times in a row. Nobody I knew buzzed like that. I walked over to the lobby camera, and there she was, Erin, standing downstairs, looking frustrated, determined, and strangely exhausted. For several seconds, I simply stared at the screen, trying to understand why the woman who had helped destroy my relationship was standing in my lobby. Then the intercom buzzed again. A moment later, my phone rang. I later found out she had gotten my number from someone in our mutual circle who thought I deserved to hear her side directly. I let it ring, then ring again. Eventually, curiosity won. Hello? Her voice came through immediately. Clara, thank God. The familiarity irritated me instantly. We don't know each other. A pause. Then she said something that made my whole body go still. I think Mason lied to both of us. I stared at the lobby monitor. Erin shifted her weight from one foot to the other, glancing toward the entrance every few seconds. She looked exhausted, not guilty, not triumphant, and somehow that made me trust her even less. What exactly do you want? I asked. 5 minutes. No, please. The desperation in her voice caught me off guard. Then she said, I didn't know those tickets were supposed to be for both of you. My grip tightened around the phone. What? I swear I didn't. Mason told me you couldn't go. He told you what? He said you hated the band. He said you were working that weekend and didn't care about the concert. Apparently, that ridiculous excuse had not just been for me. Mason told me the tickets would go unused, Erin continued, her voice shaking now. He made it sound like he was trying to help me. The pieces started moving, slowly and painfully, like broken glass being forced together. Why are you telling me this now? Because I found out he wasn't honest with me either. Of course, there was always another layer. What happened? She was quiet for a few seconds. The night after the concert, we were having drinks. My stomach tightened. He told me you had been controlling. He said you'd been jealous of me for months. He said the relationship was already over. The same story from social media. The rewritten timeline. The edited version of reality. The version where he was free before he acted like he was free. And then? I asked. Then I found out that wasn't true. I walked back to the couch and sat down. Suddenly, this conversation was not just about the tickets or even the breakup. It was about a man selling two different realities to two different women and hoping neither compared notes. A mutual friend had apparently reached out to Erin after the concert, someone who knew both of us, someone who had seen the photos and assumed she already knew the truth. Within 10 minutes, the story unraveled. The tickets, the hotel, the restaurant, the 6 hours in the ticket queue, everything. By the end of that conversation, Erin realized the concert was not some spontaneous outing. It had been a birthday surprise I had planned, and Mason had taken it and repurposed it for himself. Why didn't you call me then? I asked. Because I was embarrassed, she said. That at least sounded honest. I thought maybe there was something I didn't understand. I almost smiled, not kindly, but with recognition. The same thing I had been telling myself. The same hope. The same denial. The same desperate search for an explanation that did not make someone look terrible. And then things got worse. After the concert, the workplace rumors had exploded. People started talking openly. Managers started asking questions. Coworkers started connecting dots. Late-night messages. Private lunches. Meetings that lasted longer than they should have. Nothing officially inappropriate, nothing anyone could prove, but enough to make everyone uncomfortable. The attention that had seemed exciting a week earlier was not exciting anymore. Now, it was pressure, consequences, reality. Where does Mason fit into all this? I asked. He's trying to convince everyone he's the victim. That sounded exactly right. He told me you manipulated people against him. He told me his family hates you now. That almost made me laugh, because if Mason's family hated me, they had a funny way of showing it. His mother had stopped calling. His sister had gone quiet. And 2 days earlier, someone unexpected had reached out. His father. A man who rarely spoke. A man who spent most family gatherings listening instead of talking. His text had been simple. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve this. Take care of yourself. I had stared at that message for a long time because it felt genuine, like someone acknowledging reality without trying to rewrite it. I never told Erin that. Instead, I asked, why are you here? She looked directly at the lobby camera as if she knew I was watching. Because I wanted you to hear it from me. Hear what? I never wanted your boyfriend. I did not answer. And honestly, she added quietly, I don't think I ever really knew him. For the first time since she arrived, I believed her. Not completely, not enough to trust her, but enough to recognize something familiar. Disappointment. The kind that comes when someone finally reveals who they are, and you realize the person you cared about was only the version they sold you. We talked for another 15 minutes. Not as friends. Not as allies, just two women comparing pieces of the same puzzle. By the end of the conversation, one thing became painfully clear. Mason had told different stories to everyone. Different stories to me, to Erin, to coworkers, to his family, to mutual friends. Each version adjusted slightly depending on who was listening. Eventually, those versions collided. When the call ended, Erin thanked me. I wished her luck. Then she left. I watched her walk out of the lobby and disappear down the sidewalk, and for the first time in weeks, I stopped wondering whether I had made the wrong decision. I had not. The answer had been sitting in front of me from the beginning. It just took time for all the lies around it to fall apart. 3 days later, Mason showed up at my gym. I was halfway through a treadmill workout when I saw him near the front desk. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Then he started walking toward me. Mason. Of course it was Mason. This was not his gym. He knew it was not his gym. I had switched gyms after the breakup, partly because I wanted a clean start. Yet somehow he was standing there, looking exhausted and stressed, like someone who had not slept properly in days. I slowed the treadmill and stepped onto the side rails so I would not fall while he created another scene. When he reached me, I pulled out one earbud. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk." "No, we don't." "Clara." "No." His jaw flexed. He looked around the gym, clearly aware people were already noticing us, then lowered his voice. "Can you please stop doing that?" "Doing what?" "Acting like I don't exist." The irony nearly made me laugh. For weeks, I had been trying to understand how he could erase me from the story I created, how he could treat me like I did not exist while using the weekend I planned. Yet now he was offended that I wanted distance. "Mason, leave. I'm trying to fix this." "No, I made mistakes." Now it was mistakes, plural. Not misunderstandings, not jealousy, not overreactions. Apparently, the vocabulary had evolved. He took a step closer. "I know I handled things badly. I should have talked to you first. I should have respected your feelings." The words were technically correct, but something felt off, the same way a copied apology always feels off, like he had learned what he was supposed to say without understanding why. Then he finally revealed the real reason he was there. "It all got out of control." The consequences, the fallout, the workplace situation, the rumors, the questions. Not the betrayal. Not me. The mess had become inconvenient, and suddenly he wanted the version of his life that used to be stable, the version where I was waiting, the version where I absorbed problems instead of creating boundaries. "I talked to Aaron," I said. His face changed instantly, not dramatically, but enough. A tiny flicker of panic he could not hide. "What did she say?" "A lot. She's angry. She has reasons." He rubbed the back of his neck. "She doesn't understand everything." I almost smiled. Apparently nobody understood anything except Mason. Everyone else just kept misunderstanding him. "What part doesn't she understand?" His mouth opened, then closed. No answer. People with good explanations usually share them quickly. People without good explanations search for better wording. The gym around us kept moving. Weights clanked. Music played overhead. A television near the cardio section showed a game nobody seemed interested in. Life continued, and for the first time, I realized how disconnected I felt from the situation. Not numb. Finished. Mason looked at me for several seconds. Then his shoulders dropped. The anger disappeared. The defensiveness disappeared. What replaced it looked strangely like fear. Not fear of losing an argument. Fear of losing access. 3 years, he said quietly. I nodded. 3 years. His voice cracked slightly. Does none of that matter? The question deserved an answer. Despite everything, those 3 years were real. The vacations were real. The holidays were real. The nights we stayed awake talking about the future were real. The plans were real. The love was real, at least for me. So I answered honestly. It matters. His expression brightened for half a second. Then I continued. It matters enough that I won't let it become 4. The hope disappeared from his face immediately. He finally understood. I was not negotiating. I was not testing him. I was not waiting for the perfect apology. I was done. After a long moment, he asked, "When did you stop loving me?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and the answer was not what he expected. I didn't. His eyebrows pulled together. What? I didn't stop loving you first. The confusion on his face deepened. You stopped valuing me. The sentence settled between us. The relationship didn't end when I changed my status, I said. It didn't end when I canceled the hotel. It ended when you looked at something I did out of love and saw something you could give to someone else. For several seconds, he could not speak. That was the part he could not argue with. Not the concert. Not the photos. Not Aaron. That choice. The moment he stopped seeing my effort as something valuable. The moment he assumed I would stay no matter what. Eventually, he looked down and nodded once, slowly, almost sadly. The front desk manager had started watching us. A few people nearby were pretending not to listen. The conversation had reached its natural ending, and Mason seemed to realize it too. I took a step backward, then another. I really did love you, he said. Oddly enough, I believed him. Love just had not been enough. Not without respect. Not without consideration. not without trust. I know, I said. And that was the last conversation we ever had. A month later, I heard through mutual friends that Mason transferred departments. A few months after that, Aaron left the company entirely. Their friendship disappeared too. Apparently, reality was not nearly as exciting as the fantasy. As for me, I stayed single for a while, not because I was bitter, but because I wanted to understand what had happened before I carried it into something new. I spent time with friends, focused on work, started traveling more, and slowly learned how peaceful life feels when you stop trying to earn basic respect. Sometimes people ask if I regret ending a 3-year relationship over concert tickets. I always give the same answer. It was never about the tickets. The tickets were simply the moment the truth became impossible to ignore. Relationships usually don't collapse in one dramatic second. They fall apart through small choices people hope you'll keep forgiving, until every choice starts saying the same thing. You are not a priority. You will stay anyway. You will accept this. Mason believed that. I believed I would keep choosing him no matter what he chose. I was wrong. Looking back, losing $1,200 hurt. Losing 3 years hurt more. But staying with someone who treated my love like something he could spend wherever he wanted would have cost me far more. And I finally loved myself enough not to pay that price.